And as we've been reporting, the government has just hours before it runs out of funding and shuts down. While down to the wire government funding negotiations are not unusual, an actual shutdown is less common. There have only been 14 since 1981, most of which were relatively short. Before 1981, there would be periods where the government would briefly run out of funds during an appropriations impasse, but government functions would work mostly as usual on the expectation that money would be provided later. It was in 1980 and 1981 when then Attorney General Benjamin Civiletti argued government agencies didn't have legal authority to continue running without congressionally provided funds. Most of these shutdowns have been fairly short. There were 8 during the Reagan years, all of which were 1 to 3 days. The long shutdown became a political reality in 1995 during a 21-day standoff between Democratic President Bill Clinton and congressional Republicans. 2013 saw a 16-day shutdown with closed national parks. The longest to date, though, currently, it started a few days before Christmas in 2018 and lasted 34 days. That shutdown cost the economy about $3 billion, according to the Congressional Budget Office. 800,000 employees, or 37% of the federal workforce, were either furloughed or worked without pay. It ended with Congress passing a bill to reopen the government that didn't include the contested $5.7 billion for a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border. And this time around, the Office of Management and Budget, or OMB, has authorized government departments and agencies to lay off employees during the shutdown. An OMB memo has authorized them to issue reduction in force notices to employees in programs with lapsed funding and that aren't, quote, consistent with the president's priorities. What that could look like is not really clear yet, as departments are still releasing their shutdown contingency plans. But to break it all down nonetheless, CBS News Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady joins us now for more on the economic impact of a government shutdown. Kelly, no better person to talk to you than you. So if the government shuts down, how significant is the ripple effect on the larger economy?
So the way that I like to think about this is consumers, the federal worker, and then that broader economic picture. I mean, if you're a consumer, and you're not a federal worker right now, it's not incredibly going to change your life. If you're going to a national park, or maybe if you are applying for national flood insurance because your home requires that, you're in a particular area, you are going to face delays. But I don't want people to panic because you are still going to receive things like Social Security checks and Medicare. Now, the federal worker, you just mentioned, right, you're not going to get paid during that time. You're going to get back pay. But if you're someone that is struggling to make ends meet, the government is not going to pay you back if you incur an interest charge or a late fee on your credit card, or maybe you don't pay rent. And so that's where the trickle effect comes with the broader economy. And there's an analysis that was done by EY, and it says it's roughly $7 billion a week if the government shuts down. That seems like a lot versus that $3 billion number that you quoted. But remember, that was years ago. $7 billion for our economy is only 1/10 of 1% of GDP. So when you put it into that context, it's not that large. It's not nothing, but we often do rebound quite quickly in these types of situations when the government reopens.
Yeah, but no doubt people will be impacted if the government shutdowns, and that also includes you, because Friday is the jobs report, which is your bread and butter covering that. So if that report doesn't come out because of the shutdown, how big of a deal is it to not have that economic data?
Well, maybe I get my Friday off tomorrow, so who knows? No, I'm just kidding. I'll be reporting on this. So basically, we've got a jobs report. We've also got an inflation report coming out next week. And this is important because the Federal Reserve uses this economic data that the Bureau of Labor Statistics releases and has said that they will not release in a shutdown in order to determine what they're going to do with interest rates. They meet again at the end of October. I know a lot of people watching are looking for lower interest rates, businesses, consumers. And so what I've heard is if they don't have that new updated picture of how the labor market is doing, they might say, you know what, we're just going to be cautious and we're not going to make any changes, or they might delay that meeting as well. So that's something that definitely investors are also looking at.
That would be an unwelcome update for so many people who are looking to that update on the interest rates. Kelly O'Grady, we appreciate your time. Thank you. If the government shuts down at midnight, the impact may be felt at airports across the country. More than 58,000 TSA employees and 13,000 air traffic controllers would be working without pay. And CBS News' Kris Van Cleave is at Denver's airport with more on what flyers can expect.
We don't expect major disruptions tomorrow or the rest of this week if people show up at an airport like here in Denver. But if this shutdown is measured in weeks, not days, or stretches even longer than that, that's when we need to prepare for the potential of disruptions and delays. And I'm basing that off what we saw play out back in 2018 when we had a 35-day shutdown starting in December. As soon as that first missed paycheck, so think about 2 weeks in, we started to see sick calls from TSA officers really increase at airports across the country. That led to longer lines at checkpoints, so it took people longer to get through security. Some checkpoints had to be closed, and in one case in Miami, they even had to close an entire terminal because there weren't enough TSA officers to staff it. Now, TSA officers are not high-paid government workers, so missing a paycheck can have a profound impact. Air traffic controllers would also work without pay, and in January of 2019, air traffic control sick calls resulted in significant flight disruptions in the New York City area shortly before the shutdown ended. There is a shortage of air traffic controllers. During a shutdown, hiring and training of new hires generally stops. That would slow efforts to get more controllers on the job quickly. Amtrak should operate normally because while it receives federal funds, it is operated as an independent entity. Travelers heading to national parks, they're likely to be in for a disappointment. Most national parks will close to the public during a shutdown. The U.S. Travel Association estimates the cost of a government shutdown to the U.S. travel economy to be around $1 billion a week. Kris Van Cleave, CBS News, Denver.